Welcome to Let's Talk Global Warming. My name is Stevie. Just as a reminder, this is a purely informational channel, and all of my facts come from verified and dependable sources, all of which you can check yourselves to the links in the description of this episode. Last episode I mentioned that greenhouse gases are responsible for global warming. Today, I'm going to be talking about the media's favorite greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide. I call it the media's favorite because carbon dioxide is talked about so much that oftentimes people forget that there are other greenhouse gases. And with all of this talk about carbon dioxide going around, most people have no idea why carbon dioxide is such a big threat or where it comes from. Today, we are going to dig deep and talk about exactly what carbon dioxide means for global warming. The problem with carbon dioxide isn't that it's terribly powerful. In fact, it absorbs much less heat than most of the other greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide does, however, have a much longer lifetime. In an article from the NRDC, it states that when a pulse of carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere, 40% of it will remain in the atmosphere for 100 years, 20% of it will remain after 1,000 years, and 10% will make it through all of that to 10,000 years. Carbon dioxide is also powerful just because of the tremendous amount of it that is released. According to the EPA, carbon dioxide accounts for 81.6% of all the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions caused by human activities. It is estimated that carbon dioxide levels were as high as 407 parts per million in 2018. This means that for every million particles of air, there were 407 particles of carbon dioxide. I know that doesn't sound that bad, but according to the NOAA, the last time that carbon dioxide levels were that high was 3 million years ago, when the temperature was 2 to 3 degrees Celsius higher than before industrialization, and the water level was 12 to 25 meters higher than it is right now. This carbon dioxide increase in the atmosphere is happening around 100 times faster than it would naturally. According to the NOAA, because of its long lifetime and the abundance of it in the atmosphere, carbon dioxide can claim responsibility for 2/3 of the energy imbalance causing global warming. Of course, most of these emissions were released because of humans. Maybe the media talks about carbon dioxide so much because we release so much of it that it's impossible to ignore it. According to the EPA, the largest source of carbon dioxide emissions is fossil fuel burning. According to an article from the NRDC, fossil fuels are fossilized organic matter such as plants and animals that after being underground for millions of years act like big Ziploc bags of carbon dioxide. The burning of fossil fuels is used to produce electricity, gasoline, and products like plastic and chemicals. Oil, coal, and natural gas are the three forms of fossil fuels plaguing our environment. In another episode, I'm going to deeply explain fossil fuels and their effect on the environment because it extends beyond just carbon dioxide emissions. For now, know that the burning of fossil fuels releases almost 3/4 of the carbon dioxide emissions in the United States and harms the environment by releasing other dangerous chemicals into the environment and disrupting natural ecosystems. In every way, the burning of fossil fuels is terrible for the environment. Because it is so terrible, many solutions have been proposed as described in an NRDC article. The most popular solution has been to replace fossil fuels with renewable energy. Renewable energy sources are sources of energy that come in an infinite supply, such as sunlight and wind power. Renewable energy sources like solar and wind power do not release harmful pollutants or greenhouse gases like the burning of fossil fuels does. For this reason and many more, renewable energy sources could eventually replace fossil fuels as our new, clean energy source. There has also been a massive global push to make everything from appliances to vehicles more energy efficient or electric, so that even if we can't transition away from fossil fuels now, we can at least use less of them. The transition from fossil fuels to renewable, efficient, and electric has been painfully slow. And, at the rate we are going, potentially not fast enough to prevent further global warmth. Again, I don't want to talk too much about this because the fight to get rid of fossil fuels extends way beyond just carbon dioxide emissions. Another source of carbon dioxide emissions is deforestation. According to an article from the EPA, trees have taken carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis for millions of years. For anyone who needs a refresher, photosynthesis is a process by which plants, with the help of sunlight, convert water and carbon dioxide into food for the plant. In this process, oxygen is released as a waste product. What you may not know is that plants, dead organic matter, and soil store carbon dioxide in a process called biological sequestration, which has earned them the nickname carbon sinks. So what do you think happens when trees are cut down? All of the carbon dioxide in these sinks is released. So deforestation not only results in plants not being able to take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis, it also results in more carbon dioxide being released into the atmosphere from their sinks. In the EPA article, it gives the IPCC's way to reduce the carbon dioxide released by deforestation. The obvious way would be to stop cutting down trees. They also propose that plants should be immediately replanted in forest areas that have been cleared naturally or by humans in order to reduce the carbon dioxide released from the carbon sinks in the soil. One more source of carbon dioxide emissions that isn't talked about much is industrial work. On one hand, a lot of the emissions that come from industrial work are associated with the burning of fossil fuels, but it goes farther than that. According to the EPA, the carbon dioxide can come from the chemical reactions taking place in addition to the fossil fuel burning. The most common examples of this are concrete, steel, iron, and chemicals such as ammonia. Let's start with concrete because, to the shock of many, concrete produces a lot more carbon dioxide than people suspect. According to an article from the BBC, around 8% of the world's carbon dioxide emissions come from cement production. Let's put that into perspective. If all of the cement production was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of carbon dioxide. Cement releases most of its carbon dioxide in its production process while making a material called clinker. When cement is made, materials like clay and limestone, among other materials, are heated, inducing a process called calcination, which divides those materials into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. In this process, the carbon dioxide is emitted as a waste product. As people have become more aware of cement's discrete role in carbon dioxide emissions, there's been lots of research conducted to make cement a zero-emissions product. One of these researchers has been Mrs. Craig Dozier, who founded BioMason, an architectural company that produces bioconcrete bricks. In a process that resembles how coral is created, the bricks are made by infusing microorganisms into molds of sand. This process does not require burning fossil fuels or calcination, which gets rid of concrete's two biggest emitters of carbon dioxide. According to an article from the Stockholm Environment Institute, steel and iron also play a substantial role in carbon dioxide emissions. Iron is a major component of steel. Steel is one of the most widely used building materials, but is far from being the greenest building material. In fact, steel production accounts for around 7% of worldwide carbon dioxide emissions. While some of this is due in part to the use of fossil fuels to power the heat needed to make steel, chemistry also has a lot to do with steel and iron's massive carbon footprint. When iron is usually produced, iron ore pellets are heated with coke, which is a carbon-rich derivative of coal, to form pig iron, which is a form of iron that can be used to make steel. During this process, massive amounts of carbon dioxide is released as a waste product. Fortunately, there has been research released which uses hydrogen instead of coke. The waste product of this process is water instead of carbon dioxide. The problem with this is that environmentally friendly hydrogen gas is not readily available, as the easiest way of getting it requires fossil fuels. So instead, the research team split the water waste product to form the hydrogen. Because the process of splitting water molecules requires tremendous amounts of electrical energy, people would have to step up their renewable energy electrical systems so that the use of more fossil fuel-produced electricity wouldn't release more carbon dioxide in a process meant to cut carbon dioxide emissions to zero. Not only will it take an immense amount of change to transition the steel and iron industry away from the polluting process of burning coke for iron, it will also take a tremendous amount of development of renewable energy electrical systems to provide the renewable energy these companies need to fuel these processes. The last source of carbon dioxide emissions from industrial work is ammonia production. An article from the Science and Engineering News Company reveals ammonia's massive role in carbon dioxide emissions. Ammonia is widely used in fertilizers, plastics, pharmaceuticals, textiles, and explosives. Fertilizers, however, is the product most responsible for ammonia's negative environmental impact. This all comes from a method for making ammonia known as the Haber-Bosch process. The Haber-Bosch process, which converts hydrogen and nitrogen into ammonia, is viewed as one of the most important chemical reactions discovered, as the fertilizer produced from it resulted in an increase in agricultural success, which led to a population boom. But like iron, the Haber-Bosch process requires hydrogen, a chemical that can only be obtained using fossil fuels or by splitting water molecules. The problem again is that the process of splitting molecules without burning fossil fuels for fuel requires an abundance of renewable electricity. renewable electricity that still hasn't been developed enough to support the Haber-Bosch process during mass-scale production of ammonia. From this episode, I hope you can now see how everything from the concrete under your feet to the gas in your car results in carbon dioxide emissions. The most important thing, however, is to focus on the fact that there are solutions. We can fix the problem at hand. It is possible. We're not doomed yet. If we all work together, we can do it. If you have any questions or if there's a climate change topic you'd like me to talk about, don't forget to comment below or on the Instagram post associated with this podcast. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast and follow me on Instagram at talking_about_global_warming. In my next episode, I'm going to take a break from greenhouse gases to talk about the fires in Australia occurring right now, so be on the lookout for my next episode. Don't forget to spread the word about this channel so that more people can be informed about global warming and we can take true steps to saving our world from climate change. Thanks for listening.